Hello there, welcome to Heart Explained Therapy. Now, I want to try and explain how not to get triggered by circumstances in your life and how to handle those emotions that bring you a lot of suffering. Because for me, controlling these emotions is the sort of liberating freedom that we have from the negativity and the suffering that exists in everyday life. And we can't take away pain and rejection and alienation and racism and powerful organisations that do not share wealth and do not even set up systems for that share of wealth to be possible. And we can't change all that, but we can definitely make sure that we feel at peace, I suppose, and comfortable. But it's very difficult to do. And I want to first discuss why we do get emotionally triggered, because it's the first response is very natural, and it's not something that we should be disgusted by. But it doesn't make us feel good to desire and want everybody to be like us and to live in a world where this isn't going to ever happen. However, we crave for it, and we crave for it a whole lifetime. And all that we're really craving for is that feeling of, I suppose, the first idea is happiness, but for me, the happiness comes from the peace when you finally let go of all the needless suffering that exists in your own wants and desires and the wrongs that are in the world. Now, the reason why we feel emotions in everyday life is because you will experience trauma and pain in your life. You will have experiences of good, happy, joyful moments, and they won't last forever. And you'll go into negative feelings and emotions, and this could be from physical poor health, relationships, you not having your needs met, not getting certain things that you think that you should have. You can have jealousy from other people where you think that you don't like them, but you're jealous of certain things that they have, traits that they have even. Or you might just be totally okay to see and view something as completely wrong, and this is where we get into how women are suppressed and how there is racism that still exists and trolling and sort of toxic behaviour that we see every day. But for me, controlling the emotions which just want to make you almost run away from a situation or hide from a situation or confront a situation leads to you almost reacting like an animal. And we're a little bit more than an animal. We have a mind that can go against instinct, which is quite incredible if you harness the power that that brings. I think one of the problems that we have with the way that we are, or the way that we live, is that we view reality with an egotistical opinion. This is good, I like this. This is bad, I don't like this. This is a good person, this is a bad person. And what you see most of the time, and this can be an example of anything, is what you're really saying is the external person or system or news or monarchy or politics or religion is different to yours. And what we actually fear, going back to the animal instinct, is anything different. And we find this uncomfortable. And we want to try to live in a state where this difference doesn't exist. And this is why we surround ourselves with the stuff that we like, the people that we like, or the people that we can manage. And we will try our best to cut off anything that makes us feel any sort of different in opinion or different in mindset. We will cut it off, or we will attack it, or we will stand up for, that we will fight against it. And all this time we have this projection that we are right, they are wrong. And I think this perspective of life has to change when you consider yourself good and something is bad, or you just consider externally something is good and bad. I don't think this is the right way to look at the world. I think there's one sort of true fact for me, that I am the only one that controls my mood. I regulate the way that I react. I think sometimes we get lost into somebody else, or some story has made us react like that, and it covers up and sort of forms an alibi for us that we live off, to say that our actions are defended because this person is different and bad and not saying the same ideology as I am saying. For me, you have to control that first emotional instinct, which means you go against the animal instinct and the egotistical instinct to run or defend or even say your opinion. There's a place what you can get to in your mind where you can listen, you can stay calm. No matter what happens, you can regulate yourself at the same emotional sort of vibration, if you like. Now what this does is means that you are aware of everything that you was always aware of before, but you're not engaging in this reality anymore. You're not taking on the whole world and fighting against all the differences, because when you take on anything and fight against the difference emotionally, you will have the tendency to polarize towards the exact opposite of what you're fighting against, which ends up paradoxically becoming the thing that you're fighting against. Now we see this a lot in the world. We have a certain sort of consciousness fed to us on the way that we should look, on the way that we should speak, on the vocabulary that we should use, on the religion that we should believe in, or the politics that we should believe in. And we are fed this, and we believe that if anything comes outside of this, we should fight against it or ignore it. And this actually causes all of the problems that we have. The suffering comes from our lack and our ability, the lack of ability that we have to realise that everybody is exactly the same. We are all doing the same thing. We are all slowly, sometimes accidentally, going towards a feeling of comfort, and trying to at the very least. And when we are plunged into the mad world of mental health, we stigmatise ourselves with this is wrong, this is bad, this is something that we need to take medication for, and we become something that was just able to be controlled with our reaction. But we haven't been able to do that, and that's because we've emotionally engaged in our identity that I am A, B, C, D, and this person doesn't tick these boxes, or this situation doesn't feed this A, B, C, D, so therefore it's different, and I'm going to almost like a primal reaction to attack the separate tribe as if it's some sort of threat, when really most things that happen every day aren't really ever a life and death situation. They're never really a threat to your existence. They're a threat to your egotistical existence, which you have made up in your mind, or have been sort of brainwashed or led by society or environmentally to believe to be reality, when the truth is it's not like that. Now, there's one way that I harness my own skills to make sure that I don't react emotionally to the outside world. Because if I chose to react emotionally to the outside world all of the time, I can't believe it would be too long before I end up in prison. Because, let's face it, you get knocked back and hurt quite a lot in life in general. No matter where you really are, you can have separation of wealth and a separation of jobs and security, but you can still have really bad things happen. You can still come across really bad people. The only way that I survive is by doing something that I have the choice, which is to interpret the events in a certain way. And sometimes I interpret the events to be completely consciously true, that I have been wronged, that I have been emotionally attacked, or I have been stabbed in the back, or I have been offended. But I choose the path that first of all makes me feel comfortable and at peace, not emotionally erratic. And then, because I've kept my mind and physical being in this peaceful state, I can then weigh up a different reality, a reality where I can connect with the person, because a long time ago I was also that unconscious, reacting, instinctive person. Now, this doesn't make the wrong right, but it makes you separate the experience of the negative sort of bad experience that you've had. It makes you separate from being in it to almost being out of it, and observing it with compassion, emphatically, to understand the crazy place where evil exists is the same place that we can choose to go to any time. And I don't really view people now as good and bad. I view them as joyful and miserable. And you might not think there's a big separation, but for me, and it's hard to describe really in words anyway, but for me, people doing what they can do. They have a certain education, a certain conscious awareness, and they are acting out with that conscious state. When I look at a beautiful deer or gazelle that runs through a field, I think this is a beautiful, joyful creature, and a lion hunts it down and kills it. And I have to understand that the lion is doing something to instinctively feed its cubs, to instinctively survive. And unconsciously, I have also eaten an animal, and I don't need to do it to instinctively survive, but it hasn't stopped me doing it. I've done it for pleasure. This is a big twist of your conscious state here. This is a U-turn on your whole mind and where it wants to go, which is to make you the personal victim, to make your identity real as if you do truly exist and have these experiences. And it doesn't leave any room for love and compassion on anybody but yourself and all the desires that you have. This doesn't come overnight, this understanding and how to not react to everything that you should normally react to. It comes through practice, just like the way that you learn to read and write and walk and do that job that you do currently, or drive that car that you do, or just certain things where you're really good at it now. There was some stage when you wasn't, and you need to develop and practice these certain things to improve and get to the place where peace exists. Now, we have a lot of anger waiting to come out, and it comes out in the moments where other people trigger us on this belief that we have that we are different from everybody else, which isn't technically true. This is seen in the media at the moment with what I see as completely almost like an oversensitivity of the whole world, where it's very difficult to say anything to anybody without offending that person. We live in a state now where we have been so distracted by the gadgets and gizmos of life, like virtual technology, like the sort of being plugged into any information that we have and being left in sole charge of exactly what information we want to look at, exactly what distractions we want to do, which is normally drug related, and I'm talking about alcohol and fast food diets, and we are left to choose social media and news media that just pours negative, fearful stuff into our eyes, which become our thoughts and feelings. We've been so led into this world that we don't really know or have any understanding, because nobody really nudges us to the right piece of light that's shining to see any other place. Now, the most important thing that I've learned is it's not to completely disengage with the negativity. It's to understand when you are triggered and what is triggering you, and to see that it's just a falsified version of yourself that you have projected into the world. Morals, values, beliefs, the dreams that you are a certain somebody with a certain set of opinions that should be listened to by all and everybody, or by a certain sort of group of people. And another thing that you can do is project people to be above you or below you on a sort of pedestal. And it's this falsifying, this illusion, that actually is causing the need knee-jerk reactions to everything that happens, and you say that you suffer because of mental health or your physical ailments, or you suffer because your interactions with certain people in your life, or you suffer because you're not happy in your dream job, or you're not happy when you get up and do something because you don't want to willingly do it. You are creating that story. There's a flip side to that story where you can willingly go into every situation as if it's the best thing in the world, as if it's the first time you've ever done anything in the world. You can rip that ego, dissolve that ego naturally without taking these addictive sort of distractions to do so. And you find this peace that brings you down from this egotistical, opinionated person that has to be heard and listened to this person that can just enjoy the experience of living, which is a expansion of moving time and something that we attach desires and purpose and relationships to. And as long as we don't create this good and bad and good and evil that exists outside of us, we then find the heaven. And for me, the most obvious projection of hell on earth is when you are a slave. And you are a slave when you are emotionally reacting to other people and external events. You have given away your power, what you have inside, your interpretation, your reactive sort of skills to understand that you own that, and then you're no longer enslaved. And heaven is bringing this great power that you have to the surface in every situation. This is where you can now volunteer and be willing in everything you do. You can enjoy the traffic jams and the setbacks and the downfalls and the pits and the spirals of doom and gloom that you're going to probably fall into, because it's a toss of a coin on different circumstances of when this is going to happen. And we can just sort of put our shoulders back, stand up tall, be brave and be fearful, and walk into these imaginary illusions, knowing that we will always own this thing that we have inside us, and no one can ever take that away unless you give that outside world the power to do so.